Gilli Pong analysis of.
Hello and welcome to Gilli Pong analysis. Today we are going to do something fun. We're going to go down into going down the road of understanding logical fallacies. Where they come from? No, not where they come from, but brief examples, trying to understand what logical fallacies are. I think this is like the foundation of logic when it comes to just understanding what logic really is. Being logical, making sense, being understood by others, being intellectually honest, and other things. So let's just go into it. Sorry for my quality of whatever camera I have right now. I'm using my old beautiful computer that has been running Linux for the past since 2018. It's it works. It goes through it, makes it happen. But I can't do a lot of stuff. Not big on the visual stuff. But anyway, logical fallacy overview. We're going to go into it. Ad hominem, personal attack, attacking the person making the argument rather than the argument itself. You say that just because you're a homosexual or something like that. That would be a personal attack instead of arguing by the argument that the man made or the woman made. Straw man, misrepresenting or exaggerating someone's argument to make it easier to attack. So you create a straw man instead of looking at the argument itself and the valids and the merits of the argument itself. We should liberalize the law on marijuana. No way, unlimited access to drugs would contribute to massive increase of drug abuse. But that was not his argument, was it? Appeal to ignorance. Argument from ignorance. Claiming something is true because it hasn't been proven false or vice versa. Claiming something is false because it hasn't been proven false. No, proven true. That's the vice versa part, sorry. I'm mixing it all up. Claiming something is true because it hasn't been proven false or vice versa. My house is haunted. We don't know for sure that it's not. They can't find any evidence of that the ghosts are not there or something like that. A vital force flows through all living things. Prove it doesn't. We don't know what that was in the sky. It must have been aliens. And notice there's a certain bias in some of these pictures I found online, but I'm not promoting the bias of there, like the vital force part, why not? But anyway, I'm not putting my own bias into this. I'm trying to make this as objective as possible for everyone just to understand the actual logical fallacies that we can be facing or we are using ourselves in our own mind or intelligence. The false dilemma, either or fallacy, presenting only two options as the only possibilities when there are more. Should he go to the party or should he be bored all night? Two options. But he could also chill at home with a friend, go to the movies, do whatever, many other options that could be here. The slippery slope, arguing that a small first step will lead to a chain of related events culminating in a significant, usually negative or exaggerated effect. This is a tough one to see, but it could be connected also to the marijuana. There was this Reefer Madness documentary made that Bjorno, my friend, pointed out to me when I was showing him this lecture, and he was helping me with it. No, this presentation, not lecture. And he talked about if you the whole point of the Reefer Madness was if you smoke marijuana, it will kill everything in your life because you will end up shooting up heroin and becoming a drug addict. It's a gateway drug into being homeless. It's like the slippery slope. It's a logical fallacy. You can be more moderate in your thinking about this than going to this fallacy. Circular reasoning, begging the question. Begging the question. When the conclusion of an argument is assumed in its premises, rather than being supported by independent evidence. So he starts on the top left here. Okay, he has autism, but why does he do that? He does that because he has autism. How do you know he does that because of his autism? Because he does that. But why does he do that? Because he has autism. One of them is begging the question is the same with, what is a woman? Well, a woman is somebody who identifies as a woman. Yeah, but like we're trying to define a woman, try to say what a woman is without using woman in how you're describing what a woman is. Tough one, I know. Hasty generalization. Making a broad generalization based on a small or unrepresentative sample. This is a 6. No, this is a 9. Or it's an eye, like a comic eye. Can you see it? I can see it. Red herring. Diverting attention from the real issue by introducing an irrelevant topic. This is so hard, especially if you have a lack of focus and you're trying to maintain like a thought process because you're holding a lot of information, especially when you're looking at a debate. You're looking at a debate and there's a lot of different things and elements that you're trying to hold, and it's hard because you can think about something else and you kind of forgot what the whole house of cards that had been built in the debate was. So like the house is on fire, but look at this red herring. Like it's just not inside what is being talked about. But it could kind of relate to it, but you're diverting from the original topic at hand. Appeal to authority. This is this is very, very much in our society, in our culture. Insisting that a claim is true simply because a respected figure or institution says so, without any supporting evidence. We can look at the whole debacle regarding medical industry right now. What is true and what is false when it comes to that, without appealing to some scientific study that is heavily maybe funded by a bias. By a corporation that needs a bias, they make a scientific study to prove their case. So, I need to detox. My chiropractor said everyone should. An economist says climate change is a hoax, so it must be true. Of course, Santa is real. My mom and dad says so. So you see that there's, instead of an argument being made, or presenting any evidence with your arguments, or evidential or argumentation, you're just appealing to some else, without really going into it. Appeal to emotion. I have a picture of Sam Harris for a reason. Manipulating an emotional response in the place of a valid argument. This is Richard Dawkins. This is Christopher Hitchens. This is Sam Harris. Instead of making an argument, you're appealing to emotion. So an example would be like what Sam Harris says. Why should I believe in a God when a person who believes in God puts on a bomb vest and blows themselves up in a crowd of people? You see that there's an appeal to emotion here, instead of making a real argument. Appeal to pity. Attempting to win an argument by making the audience feel sorry for someone rather than using valid reasoning. How can you convict this man of murdering his mother? He's an orphan. You should pity somebody instead of actually following an argument and trying to figure out what is being said and understood. So suddenly you get an emotional response, which is pity. You're pitying someone. You feel sorry for them. but you're not really looking at it from a broader perspective and understanding what's going on. This is also regarding free will, Sam Harris' argumentation. How can free will exist when people that have been experiencing terrible, terrible pasts, and of course they become a serial killer because their mom beat them when they were kids and had a horrible... So like, suddenly have pity for the serial killer because the free will that doesn't exist because he was traumatized as a child, therefore he became who he was. That's one of the arguments that I've heard, not only from him, but also from the guy from Stanford with the hair. What was his name? Some Insky. Oh. My first video. Go into my video, like, subscribe to this channel. I'm going to go deeper into this over the next few months. About understanding knowledge. What is knowledge? What can we prove and what can't we prove? So, yeah. Check it out. First video. Appeal to tradition. Arguing that something is correct or better simply because it's traditional or has always been done that way. So here I have a little one. Quite a view, MacArthur. Quite a view. Is the volcano still active? So you have 3 people looking at a volcano. Semi-active, sir. But you needn't worry. We've got it on a steady diet of sacrificial virgins. Sacrificial virgins? You're kidding. No, sir. It's a time-honored custom. I hope you don't disapprove, sir. Disapprove? We're appalled. How long has this been going on, MacArthur? 2,000 years. But we haven't had a single eruption. Oh, well, we can't argue with that. Duke! Then it's okay, sir. Here you can see that appealing to tradition is a logical fallacy. You know, you get it. Bandwagon. Ad populum. You have ad hominem and ad populum. Assuming something is true or right because it's popular or widely accepted. Everyone was speeding, so I shouldn't get a ticket. Half of Americans believe in ghosts. They must be real. It must be a good book. It's on the bestseller list. Lots of people use homeopathy. It must work. There's an obvious bias here in these things, so just notice them. But, you know, an example is sometimes when you're making an argument that is fallacious, but it's also adding a little bit of context that, like, I'm not all for what is being said here. So just so you know, be objective. Keep yourself objective. Just try to understand the concepts that we're presenting. Post hoc ergo propter hoc. False cause. Assuming that because one event followed another, it was caused by the first event. So the post hoc fallacy. I crossed a red light. I got a headache. Crossing at red lights cause headaches. Very simple to get. False cause. But you have to be very vigilant when you're listening to people's argumentation, especially if you're entering debates, to be very vigilant and see if everything that is being spoken of, and especially if you've got the scattergun effect, like Destiny or, you know, on the other side, Andrew Wilson, even though he's very more articulate in his way of speaking. Destiny's more like, and you're trying to look at all the information that's being presented, and there could be a false cause in that. You could be seeing something that it doesn't really make sense. So you have to be very calm yourself down and be very slow to try to get it, you know. And I think Jesse Lee Peterson, I'm black and I'm slow. So let me just, you know, Bana. He uses this, just calm down, try to explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old, and then I'll get it, you know. Appeal to nature. Arguing that something is good or valid because it's natural. Nature contains other things than the good ones. It also contains the bad ones, the bad things. So also see organic here, natural. Also see organic. Not everything that is natural is healthy. Arsenic and sharks are natural too. Poison ivy says, "Rub me on your genitals." Poison ivy stings, so you kind of get it. So this is something that I used to do a lot because I was very like trying to define what's natural and what's not natural. What is nature versus what is man's influence on nature? Like the whole global warming thing. Global warming, it's it's like saying that men have an obvious effect on the realm. But that is presupposing that you have to believe in everything that the scientific community and the scientism side are pushing, the holy cows of scientism, evolution, gravity, heliocentrism, germ theory. There was one else, can't quite remember, but like these are all holy cows of scientism because this has just been accepted as true. But when you go down that route and try to understand it from your perspective right now, and you're reading about what's the path towards it without appealing to someone else's authority, then you start realizing that, like, what is natural? What is man's impact on nature? And why is man separated from nature? Like, why is God also connected to realizing that men and other animals is a bad statement to make? Like, men and animals are a separated group for a reason, but somehow the evolutionists are saying that men are just mammals and primates, and and people that listen to this and they're like, "What we are?" Yeah, that's why you've been taught to believe that. But if you are a religious person or a faithful person and you believe in God, then you realize that men and women have different abilities than animals. You can't put an animal to fly a plane. Why? You see what I mean? So this is a good one. No true Scotsman fallacy. Defining a term in a biased way to protect your argument from counterexamples. So the example would be Angus saying, "No Scotsman puts sugar on his porridge." Scotty says, "But my uncle is a Scotsman and he puts sugar on his porridge." Angus, "But no true Scotsman puts sugar on his porridge." So the definition here is an attempt to defend the generalization of a certain group by excluding any counterexample for not being pure enough. You see what I mean? No true whatever. Scientist, no true Scotsman, no true knight, no true priest, no true lawyer. You have all these different, so you kind of get it. Tu quoque, you also. Dismissing someone's argument because they are perceived as being hypocritical. So here you have I told you to turn the autoclave off last night, but you didn't.
Yeah, well, you forgot to turn it off 2 nights ago.
Wait a minute. If you didn't turn it off and I didn't turn it off.
Uh-oh.
So this is a fallacy, and this is very prevalent in teenagers. Like, can you, flush the toilet after you've used it?
Well, you didn't flush the toilet 2 weeks ago when I went in and there was a big log there.
You see? So, tu quoque, you also. False equivalence. Drawing a comparison between two things that aren't actually alike in relevant aspects. So you're making equalizing two things. Or equivalating. How do you say it in English? I'm not sure. So, comparing apples and oranges as the perfect example of a false equivalence. But when you're facing somebody who's debating you, they would say, they're both fruit. Yeah, but they're not the same fruit. Let's add a banana here. Is this the same thing? No, it's not. It's very different. They come from different trees. They come from different backgrounds. They come from different things. So you see that their consistency is different. They're different in all aspects, except that they are fruits, categorized as fruit. Gambler's fallacy, believing that future probabilities are affected by past events in a random process. The universe's master plan. It is time for her to roll a 6. So you have the gambler that, I've been losing every time for 10 times. It must give me 11th. The 11th time is always the thing. No, it's not. Then 12th. And no, 13th. And the 13th. Yeah, the 13th is the thing. That the 13th. I'm gonna lose to a 13th. No, I won now. You see, it's a condition. A loaded question. Asking a question that contains a presumption that, if answered, traps the respondent. So leading versus loaded questions. I have this because this is pretty good. This is kind of like a lawyer thing or a scientific study. You have a question towards other people and you don't want to be leading or loaded in your questioning towards them to presuppose or to impose your own bias into the study. You want to make it objective to try to understand. So the criteria is on the left side and the leading questions are on the top side here. Leading question versus loaded question, and then you have the intent. Guides towards a specific response. That's the intent of leading questions. The intent of loaded questions would be provokes a predetermined answer. Bias. Introduces a subtle bias, the leading question. Imposes evident bias with a loaded question. And so we have an example. Don't you find this feature user-friendly? Or a loaded question would be, how amazing is the user-friendliness of this feature? This could impact research by the leading ones may influence participants' responses, could actually lead them to answer in a specific way, and can significantly distort research outcomes if it's a loaded question, because you're like, how amazing is Coca-Cola, a scientific study funded by the Coca-Cola company? It's like you you can see how this is important. So don't ask loaded questions, and when you're confronted with loaded questions, don't answer them. Stay away from them and point it out that it's a loaded question because you're being trapped. Middle ground fallacy, assuming that the middle position between two extremes must be correct simply because it's the middle ground. If one side is saying this, I think we should put all kittens in a blender, and the other side is saying this, no, we shouldn't, really, and you decide to split the difference by saying, I think therefore we should put half of the kittens in the blender. Congratulations, you're a sensible centrist. Now everyone will be happy.
You suck.
Not the kittens, they won't be very happy. But you can see, just taking the middle ground just because it's the middle ground is a fallacy. Equivocation, assuming ambiguous language to mislead or misrepresent the truth. And the definition here is a little bit more deeper. The equivocation fallacy occurs when a key term or phrase in an argument is used in an ambiguous way, with one meaning in one portion of the argument and another meaning in another portion. This ambiguity can lead to conclusions that are misleading or unsound. So the bat example would be, someone might argue, a bat is a mammal. Therefore, baseball players use mammals to hit baseballs, equivocating on the word bat, which can mean both a flying mammal and a piece of sporting equipment. Appeal to consequences, arguing that something is true or false based on the consequences of it being true or false. So, the example here, the stock market will go up this year. A lot of people would lose money if it didn't. You're appealing to the consequences instead of actually arguing why the stock market could go up based on some valid evidence. Sunk cost fallacy. Continuing a behavior or endeavor because of previously invested resources, time, money, effort, rather than cutting losses. If we don't get rid of the anchor, the ship will sink. No, this anchor was very expensive, so they're going down. Composition fallacy. Assuming that what is true of the parts must be true of the whole. The fallacy of composition arises when one assumes that what is true for individual parts will also be true of the whole. Just because a characteristic applies to a member of a group individually, it doesn't mean the entire group or system will exhibit the same characteristic. So you have the athletic team example. Athletic teams, just because each player on a team is outstanding doesn't mean the team as a whole will be unbeatable. I think this is in basketball, LeBron James and the Wade and all. I think did they win anything? They were all put together, and these football teams with all the best players in the world, sometimes they just don't work. Even the most expensive players are put together and they just don't work well together. Healthy foods. This is a fallacy that I've done myself with the cacao from the earlier season. I was drinking too much cacao because it's healthy. Eating a food that's good for you in moderation doesn't mean consuming it in large quantities will be more beneficial. This actually helped me. I'm a learner. I'm a moron. I'm trying to be less of a moron each day. Make less mistakes slowly. That's why I'm not always slipping something, and people were so annoyed when I was doing that. I'm not sipping anything now. So maybe something else will bother you. Maybe the hair. He is a long-haired hippie. Division fallacy. Assuming that what is true of the whole must be true of the parts. English people are good at football. John is English. Therefore, John is good at football. The fallacy of division and composition. These are two kind of same thing. The fallacy of division projects the properties of the composites on a part. The fallacy of composition projects the properties of the part on the composite. Personal incredulity. Because you found something difficult to understand, you argue that it's not true. Yeah, that's a difficult one. Especially for morons like myself. We should switch to this buffer because it shows better protein separation.
I don't believe it can do that, so we'll stick to the old protocol.
That's because you don't know anything about the protocol.
I don't believe you just said that, so you didn't.
Texas sharpshooter fallacy. Cherry-picking data clusters to suit an argument or finding a pattern to fit a presumption. So you see that the graph points this perfectly, my friend. Galatrex Bear gave me this one. So you shoot randomly at the back and you make the bullseye afterwards. It's a very good point. So you're cherry-picking data, clusters, to suit an argument, or you're finding a pattern to fit the presumption. Genetic fallacy. Judging something either is good or bad based on where or from whom it comes, rather than its own merits.
With all due respect, Your Highness, how can we entertain the ideas of a dog who developed his ideas while on the street?
An appeal to fear. This is just the news, the media, everything that you see. Everything's appealing to your fear. The medical industry, the vaccinations, the COVID, all this stuff. It's all appealing to fear. Attempting to frighten someone into an agreement by predicting dire consequences if a course of action is taken. So if you smoke, you're going to die from cancer. There's a correlation between smoking and cancer, but there's not a causation happening too. And that's also another fallacy. I might compose more of these fallacies, because I don't think they're just 30 or 31. No, I think it's 30, because I had one front slide. So, yeah, but anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. And remember, it's time to shine, so let's glow.
Gilli